why you didn't get diagnosed sooner and what it cost you. You didn't get diagnosed sooner because for whatever reason they hyperfixated on male symptoms. They just recently started doing more research studies on actual women. So even when the APA finally put it in like the DS, I don't know what it was back then, probably like 3 or 4, and now I think it's like up to 5. They focus on male symptoms. And because women and men have different nervous systems, the symptoms really were displayed differently. Men were more physically hyper, like running around like a chicken with their head cut off and couldn't focus in school, right? The women, on the other hand, had more of like inattentive ADHD, where it's like all the activity is taking place in the brain. And they didn't even really understand the complexity of ADHD, and they definitely were not aware of kind of like the occurrence of ADHD and complex PTSD. So a lot of us were intelligent, high achieving women, and like, even as children, like females, and they were just like, obviously nothing's wrong with them. They don't see the anxiety on test day. They don't see like pattern recognition got us through like school. They didn't see none of that. They didn't, we unconsciously masked, and they obviously didn't understand what was going on because we were masking. So it was just like this like crazy cycle, because you have a bunch of women who are not being tested, who have, because pretty much anytime these women are trying to like be themselves, there's some type of like reprimand. They kind of learn, their nervous systems learn that it's like not safe to be myself. So they learn to self abandon and camouflage into their environment at a very early age. So the whole experience of like identity and like authenticity, a lot of times when we hear that as, adult women now, we really have to do a lot of inner work to kind of like, who are we actually? Because you're pulling off layers and layers and layers of trauma, of shame, of guilt, of, just like abandonment, not supported, like all types of things, just peeling them off, peeling them off. And then when you finally get to like, who am I at the core? You probably don't even know who that person is. And if you're in a relationship when this happens and you're married or whatever, and you have kids and you're a mother, this could really be a very challenging time, because nobody really talks about the grieving process that you go through when you realize like, wow, they really just had us out here like raw dogging life is what I call it. Because honestly, like, what? You're in school and they're trying to get you to focus on what a noun and a verb is, where in your head that is the equivalent of being out in the wild, a lion like approaching and looks like it's gonna like attack you, and a person sitting in front of you saying, "Why are you not paying attention? What is 3 plus 5?" And you're not paying attention to that person. You're focusing on the lion and trying to keep yourself safe and survive. That is the gist of living with ADHD when you're unmedicated, and especially when you're like undiagnosed. So I feel like you have to be very gentle with yourself and give yourself a lot of grace and comfort, because they really definitely had us out in the trenches, especially if you had complex PTSD and you just literally had like parents that was just like distracted themselves and in la la land and just ignoring all the things. Especially because we can get, our bodies are kind of like, okay, in order for you to stay safe and like alive, which is what your body's whole motive is to keep you safe, like and survive. Safe doesn't actually equate to good. Safe doesn't actually really equate to safety, because really, if you grew up in a very toxic, traumatic, chaotic household, and that was what your body experienced from the time you were like kind of like 5-6 months old in your mom's womb to about 7 or 8, all the things that's taking place during that time, the caregivers, the people you're around, and all those things is what your body actually deemed as safe. And when your body is like, this is what safety is, and it's not actually like, hold on, this crap ain't safe, what ends up happening is you kind of go through life living out that emotional pattern of your childhood over and over and over again until you like become awakened to the pattern. And it just happens through different people during like different spans, but the emotional, the energetic pattern of it is the same. Because energy, like emotion is just energy, emotion. So like the energetic pattern, the emotional pattern is the same even when the circumstances are likely very different. So it's like mask can become survival, which makes you really camouflage in, which then brings on like the guilt, the shame, unworthiness, and self abandonment. And those things are very like heavy on the heart. And like one thing the Egyptians were really big on was like Ma'at, which is like balance. It's like what they call divine order. And that was basically when the heart was as light as a feather, and like your heart was put on the scale and a feather was put on the scale. And they believed that like if the heart was heavy, then like you were gonna like be reincarnated or like consumed by like some crazy like reptilian, monster or something crazy. But the whole gist of it was that you weren't supposed to have a heavy heart. Guilt, shame, self-abandonment, lack of self-trust are the key things that make your heart really heavy. And unfortunately, those are the things that plague us for a very long time, especially unconsciously, which is why we tend to live lives that is like almost like, why are we just constantly living through like trauma and chaos on a daily basis? And we don't realize that like our heart is heavy. And you have to actually do the work. Like, if you come from like a Christian background, you kind of believe that like, you go in the water and you confess your sins and like Jesus is going to save you. And like, you're kind of like, well, this doesn't really matter on this existence. I'm going to go to heaven. Personally, I don't believe that. So you have to, even Apostle Paul said like, every man must work out his own salvation. So I don't believe that we can just walk away from the responsibility of reparenting ourselves. That is not easy for everyone to accept, because it is easier to hide behind someone else coming to save us, but like that just doesn't happen. So the identity shift that takes place after you're diagnosed and you're starting to like, pull them layers back and things, that is a grievance process, because kind of like everything that you believed was a lie, but then at the same time it's like it's some type of like I don't know, comfort there, knowing that like you weren't crazy. But then at the same time you kind of go through this, what would I have been had I known this sooner? What would my life would have been like? How much easier? How much trauma would I avoid it? Because we could have like things with like impulsivity, risky behavior, ignoring red flags, especially like in situations of like, people who are not the best, people who have the like, don't have the best intentions for us. So it's important for us, especially as women, to kind of come to terms with like, okay, this is my life, and not use it as like, well, this weighs me down, but like allow ADHD to be your superpower, because hyperfixation could be a strength of yours. The way that our brains work and the pattern recognition and all those things make us an asset on any team that like requires problem solving, especially in like customer service and like tech jobs. So the whole point of this group is so that you'll understand that you're special. You have superpowers. And like us all coming together in the Sacred Bloom Club to share that is like the beauty of life. So I love you. Welcome in, and let's get started.